friends, welcome back to the Avocado Toast Budget. If you're new here, my name is Lexa. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell considering the background is very similar, but we are officially in my new home. If you watched my video on reading 7 personal finance books in 7 days, you might have seen that I was like in the process of moving when I decided to film that vlog, but now I am officially in this home. I am like 60-70% unpacked, and just enough that my house is functional, but also enough that like I feel like I can justify not unpacking the rest of the things that I do need to unpack, because it would just like all be so much nicer and more put together if I actually finished unpacking. So to you it might not be evident that I've moved, but like to me it's evident that I've moved, and the fact that I don't have a bunch of loud children running around all the time really makes a big difference. So I thought it would be weird if like I just like popped in and started going on as it, and like not addressing the fact that I have like officially moved. No. Oh my god. My plan is to film a video all about how much it costs for me to move from a 1-bedroom apartment to a 3-bedroom house that I'm renting. I'm getting ready with all of the breakdown of like things that I've spent, but I want to make sure I have everything together and that I actually am like done unpacking and everything, so I know really how much I spent in like this move process. But before that, I just kind of wanted to talk to you guys about what has happened so far, what the process has been like, because this is the first home I've ever rented. I'm still a renter. I don't really know if I want to own a home after just renting a home for a month. I already am like real excited that I don't own this home. But I want to talk to you about what that has looked like, because I can definitely say already that being a renter in an apartment is very different. Because I can already say that renting an apartment is very different, at least in my experience, from renting a home. So over the last couple of months, I have been deciding whether I was going to renew my lease at my last apartment or if I wanted to move. And a couple of things really solidified me deciding that moving was the right choice for me. One, I just needed more room. I've lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, or I've lived with roommates for my entire adult life, and it was fine when I was like just working outside of the home. But now that I work at home and I need a filming space, and that is like I do most everything in my living space, it was just getting to be way too crowded. It was so hard to feel like I had any sort of separation between work and the rest of my life, especially since my work is on social media. It's being a personal finance creator. That is hard enough because I don't really have that separation on like social media of work and life. I needed some physical separation. Another big one kind of revolved again around the fact that I work and live in the same place, and that is just needing to have my own space that was quiet when I needed it to be quiet. My apartment was fine for the first 6 months. I had college kids who lived above me. I would hear them every once in a while, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. But then, if you watch any of my videos, you might know I had a family of like 7 or 9 with a bunch of small children move in, and there was like no rules. They didn't care. Like, they were told by the landlords all of the time that they were breaking like multiple rules, not just the fact that they were loud at all hours, and they just did not care at all. And it was, when I tell you it was truly incessant, I'm not even exaggerating by that. There was not a moment where I was awake or asleep that there was not noise going on. And it got to the point that I couldn't film. I was like, I would film and then I would look at the footage and I would see that I was so just frustrated. And it was because in between every sentence I would have to stop, pause, wait for like a break in the noise, and then quickly say what I was getting ready to say. And that broke up the flow of my videos, and it just made it so I would spend like a half hour filming 3 or 4 minutes of footage. So originally I thought that I would move either into an apartment on the top floor or a smaller apartment building, but I knew I was running the risk of hearing the people outside, hearing the people next to me, hearing the people below me, and that was something that I had to take into consideration when I was deciding. Not me going on and on in this video about my noisy upstairs neighbors while my cats just wreak havoc on my life. And that was something I had to consider when I was deciding if I was going to move and whether I was going to move into a house. And to be honest, I was really nervous about moving into a home, even though I was renting, because there were just so many things that I hadn't experienced before. I have always been an apartment renter. I am used to renting apartments from large landlord companies who have things like 24/7 maintenance and security, and I just knew what to expect being an apartment renter, and I didn't know what to expect being a renter in a home. when I finally did make the decision that I needed to move, I couldn't do another year in that apartment. The next thing was, again, deciding what I was gonna start looking into. And when I went down, my biggest tip, like when I was moving, was to write down everything that I ideally would want in a living space when it comes to everything, as far as appliances, amenities, costs, location, size, and then rank what is most important to me and focus on those things that are at the top. Because the reality of it is, especially if you are on a limited budget, you are probably not going to be able to find everything that you want in that budget. So you're going to have to decide where you're willing to give and where you're not willing to give. And for me, I had a few things that were important to me, namely the location. And it wasn't necessarily, I live in a city where you can pretty much get to like from the top and the bottom within like 15 or 20 minutes unless it's like prime time traffic. However, I wanted to be close around things and the people that I love, and I wanted to be able to easily navigate around and not feel like I was like out in the middle of nowhere. But I also wanted to be in a location that I felt safe, especially if I was going to start renting a home. And that just felt different to me, not having people like around all of the time. I just felt safer being in a safer location. So that was definitely top on my list. I don't know if I already mentioned this, but I was planning on just moving in the same city. I've made a move. Last year I made the move from Michigan to Missouri. I'm happy where I am, at least for the time being, and I just wanted to live in the same city, just move different locations. And I figured if I was gonna move, I wanted to move somewhere where hopefully I'll be able to be here for a couple of years at least, and then I'll be able to grow into. So that was another thing, was I knew I wanted more than one bedroom. I did not want to get stuck in the same issue that I was having, where I did not have much of a separation between my work and the rest of my life. But the tricky part of where I live is that a lot of the houses that are available to rent are 3-bedroom houses. Like you really either have like 1 bedroom or 3-bedroom. And that's because a lot of the houses are older houses that are either not remodeled or they've been remodeled, and now you can rent for them for more expensive, but they have like, they look more modern. And I thought 3 bedrooms was like a bit much. I really only needed an extra one. However, the options for 2 bedrooms were very slim. So if I wanted a 2-bedroom, I was probably going to have to go for an apartment. And that also kind of played into my decision to rent a home. Another thing is that I have Oliver here, who is one of my cats who really I feel like is going to be a kitten for the rest of his life. He has so much energy. He loves looking outside. He loves going outside. He actually got out the other day and I was panicked thinking he was lost, and he was hiding underneath the deck. I thought he learned his lesson and he wouldn't want to beg to go outside anymore. No, he's still constantly begging me to go outside. So I wanted like trees and land and things around for him to look at outside of the windows. That was huge, because he was really struggling in a smaller space, and I wanted that light. I also am a big lover of plants. So one issue with my last apartment is that there was like absolutely no lighting. I had one window and it was like a covered window. So there truly was no light. So having some place that had more light coming in, that my plants could thrive, I could thrive, Oliver could thrive. Dory is perfectly happy wherever I am, so she's good to go. I was paying around $817 for my 1-bedroom apartment. I should say I live in one of what is considered to be like one of the most affordable college cities in the US. So rent and cost of living is a lot lower here. Along with that comes lower like average wages. But I'm very lucky in the sense that my income doesn't rely on where I live. But I know that the rent and the budget I was working with is much different here than it would be if you live somewhere that has a higher cost of living. So I was looking to pay under $1,200. I will let you know, spoiler alert, I went a little bit over that. I actually paid $1,250. The $50 was completely worth it. One more challenge I was working with though, like I said, I live in a college town, and when I moved into my apartments when my lease was up, was around the time that everyone is moving into apartments and homes and moving back for the new year, around that like August, September, October mark. So I was really worried that I was going to get stuck paying more because the options were going to be a lot less if I waited until closer to when my lease was up, or that I was just going to be left with like less options and therefore not be able to find what I was looking for, and either have to go on like a month-to-month basis with my other apartment or have to sign another lease for another year, which I was not willing to do. So I actually ended up signing the lease for this home 2 months before the lease ended for my apartment. The lease still hasn't, at the time I'm filming, ended for my apartment, but I'm fully moved into this home. And that was something I was considering when I was looking at my budget and whether it was worth moving in here. When I found this home, I knew that it was perfect for what I was looking for. It was such a good deal compared to the other things that I was seeing. And for me, it was worth paying 2 months extra of rent, basically paying for 2 places for 2 months, to be able to be moved in here and hopefully get settled in and know that this is where I'm gonna be able to live long term and not risk everyone moving in and then suddenly my options are really like dwindled. Now, for some of like the pros and cons of moving from apartment living to house living, and then specifically this house that I'm living in and the way that it is set up, some of the pros are that for the location where I'm at, how big this house is, and how nice all of the renovations are, this was an incredibly good deal. So I paid $12.50. It was completely newly renovated. It had all stainless steel appliances, except it did not have the fridge. However, it did have a washer and dryer, which is good for me because I did not have a washer and dryer before. That was a big thing I was looking for as well, is that I have been doing my laundry at my mom's house because my last apartment didn't have a washer and dryer. And that was like huge for me, that a new washer and dryer came with this house. I'm the first person to live in this house since it was renovated. So everything is new. Like everything had, a lot of stuff still had like the plastic and stuff on it, like the appliances, the toilets, everything. The people who renovated this house knew how to make a house look beautiful in the sense of like my taste. Like this very much matched my style. It has a beautiful front porch. Everything looked so nice. And when I came to visit, it was just absolutely beautiful, especially compared to the other 3 bedrooms I was looking at that were in safer kind of locations that I was looking into. Another thing for me is that it had a dishwasher. That was a big thing. Even some of these more like modern renovated houses, because they're older, they don't have a dishwasher in the kitchen. And with my ADHD, I have lived in one apartment that didn't have a dishwasher and I never cooked because the thought of having to hand wash all of those dishes wasn't happening. And then if there were dirty dishes in the sink that I knew I had to clean before I cooked, I would just end up eating out. So I knew that that wouldn't be a money saver for me, even if like I found a house that was cheaper than this one, but it didn't have a dishwasher. I would end up spending more in eating out and getting food delivery than whatever I was saving on rent. So that was a big thing for me as well. I also really loved that this had a big enough backyard and wildlife around to be able to entertain Oliver and have things that he can watch out the window, but not so big of a yard that it was like overwhelming for me to manage because I've never had to manage a yard before. And kind of transitioning into that are some of like the cons or the things that I have struggled with and I've had to learn about moving from an apartment into a house. Specifically this house is that, as I said, a big pro is that it's absolutely beautiful. There were so many things included, including like how gorgeous the showers and the bathrooms were and just like little details of the towel hangers and how everything matched and flowed. That was incredible. So I'm pretty sure that the property management group that I am renting from like manages properties, but there's individual owners. And I didn't know that at the time. So I thought, I'm used to apartment life where like the property manager, the landlord, they are responsible for, manage, and own all of the apartments, at least in that complex that you are renting from. And a lot of times the ones I've rented from own multiple complexes in like the same city. And that's kind of the vibe I got from this. However, now that I've looked into it a little bit more and I know now, I'm pretty sure that it's like individual owners and then there's one property manager, which is nice because I still have access to things like 24/7 maintenance, paying my bills online. And those were things that I wanted to be able to help me kind of transition from apartment to house renter life. I didn't want to rent from like a house hacker or one individual person who was renting out the apartment. I wanted a property group to manage it. That's just my personal thing. It's what I'm comfortable with and what I know that might change down the road as I learn and I grow more. But for me, I didn't want to risk ending up with a shitty landlord who didn't know anything about being a landlord or taking care of a rental property and me being stuck with having to deal with things like maintenance and stuff like that because I know nothing about that. I think the people who actually own this house and renovated it and flipped it are first-time house flippers because they definitely spent way more money than they needed to in this market with the value of this house and the rent that I pay on those little things that I talked about, making it look beautiful. Having all of the blinds installed, that was like not a thing at most of the houses that I was looking at. And all of like those little things that, you know, like you realize when you're decorating a house, like things like the toilet paper holders and the towel racks and the mirrors in the kitchen, they all cost money, and that adds up very quickly. And normally you're given very standard, cheap little things like that, but these were beautiful and they all matched, and lighting and having like ceiling fans, new ceiling fans in every room. However, I think they didn't know a lot about some other things. Like when I first moved in here, I realized that my house was hooked up as if it worked off of gas, but I didn't have gas. I called the electricity company. They didn't have a gas meter on this property. I had a gas stove, but no gas running to it. I didn't have hot water because the furnace is hooked up to gas. There was like a little sign on the furnace that said like it wasn't approved for use by city utilities. So it was just like some things, and like the blinds are measured to be installed on the inside of the windows, but they were installed on the outside of the windows. So there's like gaps on each side of my window where the blinds were installed. Come to find out, that's because my windows are like weird measurements, so they couldn't find the measurements of the blinds that they needed, but instead of buying longer blinds, they bought shorter blinds. And there was just things that now that I've moved in, I've realized that they spent a lot of money making it look good, but there were some things that they weren't quite sure about on the like foundations of renovating a house. I just found out that I don't have a garbage disposal, and I probably would have preferred the time and money be spent into putting a garbage disposal over putting like extra little towel hangers in each bathroom. But I digress. It's beautiful. It's things that I'm working around. I'm learning. I am learning things that I've not really ever known before. Like the first week I was trying to get trash services set up, and literally I called every single trash person around. No one was calling me back. No one was answering my calls, trying to figure out how to find someone who will come mow. How often do people need to come mow? That was an answer I didn't know. So what do I need to budget for people coming to mow? In this city, does one company service electricity, gas, and water, or are they separate companies? Because it's the same here, but in my college town it was different. So it's just things that, being an apartment renter who's usually had utilities included, I haven't had to think about, and I haven't had to, I don't know how much those things cost because they've been included. And then one of the things that I absolutely loved about this location was next door there were all of these beautiful trees. I was so excited to hang hammocks up. It was quiet here, and again, I really wanted like a house to be able to film whenever I wanted and for it to be quiet except for the cats, which I can manage, but not having to worry about like a ton of outside noise. And that same day, I think it had been like a week since I had actually technically signed my lease and gotten my keys, because I hadn't fully moved my stuff in yet, when I discovered that I didn't actually have gas or hot water. And then I also discovered that I lost the key to my front door. I couldn't figure out where it was. I ended up finding it, thankfully, but I was so worried about that I was gonna have to call them, and it wouldn't, like, the thing is that it's all individually not that big of a deal, but when you're moving and you're moving into something new, it just kind of feels like all of these things start stacking up on each other. So I was sitting in my living room looking out onto like this beautiful scenery of all of these trees, and in comes this huge tractor plowing down because apparently they are building a house next door, and I had to watch as they cut down like almost all of the trees. Thankfully, there's a line of these beautiful trees that are on my side, so they didn't cut those down, but it was like so loud as they're building a hole, and there's just this huge dirt hole next to my house. They haven't been back since then. That was like a month ago, but I just sat and cried watching them destroy all these trees, thinking, oh my god, I just signed this lease to this new house that's more expensive because I wanted to be able to make filming and work easier and not have a bunch of noise, and now they're going to be building a house the entire time I'm renting from here next door. And again, now I've been able to like take a step back and take a breather, realize that this is things that I can handle, but it was just like a bunch of things all at once that were things I was worried about becoming a renter of a home rather than an apartment, a house rather than an apartment, and it all kind of happened all in the same day, or all within like the first few days. And that was definitely a big learning experience, and I've learned that I can handle these things. Being a house renter, I definitely think is more hands-on in my experience so far than being an apartment renter. And it makes me very thankful that I am not a house owner, because I am so glad that a few of these things like were not my responsibility, and that worst case scenario I just had to call the property management to have them figure that out and not be financially responsible or responsible for figuring out who to call and getting all of these things figured out. That is not my cup of tea. That is not what I want to spend my time doing. Another thing that I'm going to touch on, especially more in the video that I plan on filming about the specific finances of moving, is just the finances of upgrading from a 1-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, and having like to fill that, feeling like you want to fill that space, but also being on a budget and not wanting to spend a ton of money on new furniture. Goodwill and thrift stores and Facebook Marketplace have been some of my best friends. I have found some amazing things on there. Thankfully, my mom has like 2 storage units full of things. So like the fridge was the only appliance that didn't come with this apartment. And I was really worried about having to buy a new fridge, and she has like a small little apartment sized fridge, but for now it works perfectly. And I just bought some of that, what's it called? The sticky contact paper. I bought some contact paper that is like stainless steel that you can put on the outside. It looks like stainless steel that I'm going to put on the outside of the fridge, just kind of help it match a little bit more. And my hope is that one day I'll be able to buy a fridge that has like an ice maker. That is just my dream. My top dream is a fridge that has an ice maker. But for now, that was a huge expense I didn't have to worry about. A couple of other things, like for the 3rd bedroom, I wanted to be able to have a space where if someone wanted to come and spend the night, like my brother or a family member or a friend, I had an extra bed for them. So my mom had an extra twin size mattress. All I had to buy was just like the bedding and the bed frame for that. She had an extra desk, which was really nice, and just like a little lounge chair, just little things that I'm very thankful that I had someone in my life that had extras of these things that they weren't using, and that I have to spend the money to kind of like keep up, not renovate, kind of like DIY, like the paint and the handles to be able to DIY some of like the older wood furniture. But that still saves me a ton of money on things like I didn't have a kitchen table, so I had to figure out that. I really wanted like a little reading nook. If you saw my last vlog, I found this chair at one of the thrift stores that I was absolutely in love with. I've been looking at a recliner like this forever, and I was so excited because normally they're like $300 and some, and this one was only $60. And I definitely still have a lot of room to grow and to add things here, but for now, I've spent actually less money than I thought that I would have to in order to move in. And I think a lot of that is just the privilege of having family around. And I know that this is a huge privilege because before, when I lived in Michigan, I didn't have any family around. I had friends and the people who I knew at school, but I didn't have my mom and my dad or other family members who could help me move, or who might have extras of things whenever you're moving that you could either trade for or that they don't want anymore, whatever. Living for 8 years without that, to suddenly now having that, has made, whoo, I was not expecting to tear up at that. I don't want my false eyelashes to fall off. But my family is really important to me, and I'm very thankful for my family, especially my mom. Fuck. Whoa. This vibe changed really quickly. If you've been here over the last couple of years, you might know that it's been hard. I spent a lot of years feeling very alone and lonely in a really unhealthy and abusive relationship, and a relationship that kept me away from my family. I'm sorry guys, I shouldn't apologize for crying. I did not see this coming. Oof, this was not in the video notes. I spent a lot of years knowing how hard it was to navigate life and moving and everything without my mom and without my family, and my mom has just been my rock through all of this. You might remember I lived with her for a few months last summer as I kind of like made that transition from Missouri to Michigan, and she's just continuously been so supportive, and I don't know how I would have done all of this without her, but because I was away from her for so long and kind of isolated from my friends and family for so long, I know how lucky I am to have those people in my life and how much easier that has made moving. Things like even my mom having a larger car and allowing me to use her larger car to move things back and forth between my apartments, and seeing things as she goes out and shops and thinks about me, and being willing to help me kind of figure out how I'm going to set up my apartment, and being able to call her and ask her questions about when I realized I didn't have hot water or my gas, and not knowing what to do about that, and having someone who I knew I could call and ask. I know how lucky and grateful I am and how much of a privilege that is, and so grateful to have had that support during this move. And during this last 2 moves, last like year and a half, really. But the whole point of this is that I wanted to recognize that I have privileges that I know I haven't had in the past, and that in some that I've always had that other people don't, including the financial and the life privilege of being able to rent from somewhere that is safe and with a reliable landlord. Things like 24/7 emergency maintenance and a landlord that doesn't fuck you over, and having a credit score good enough that I know that I can pretty much get into any apartment that I want that fits into my budget, and knowing that even if things are a little bit tight as I'm trying to make this move and trying to navigate this last year and a half of living on my own, that I have the people and the support in my life that allows for that to happen that a lot of people don't have. And I think that that's really important to acknowledge when we're talking about things like this. Okay, hold on, we gotta re-glue on a lash real fast. But I want to thank you all, because without the ATB, without the freedom that it has granted me to be able to just get up and move places, move from Michigan to Missouri, move from a smaller bedroom to one that feels more like home in the same city even, it's freedom that was granted because of you all. And because of this platform that you give me, and how supportive you all have been through all of this. This last year and a half has been really hard. Recovering from the last 5 years over this last year has been really hard, and I'm still in it and I'm still getting through it, but I am very thankful for all of you, and that you continuously just keep coming back here and you want to hear what I have to say, and you see me as more than just this one faceted personal finance person. I'm very thankful I have a platform where I feel like I can be myself, and I feel like I can continue talking about these things and like having moments like that and not feel like I need to take a break and cut that out, and I can be real and raw and share those things with you. I don't know if words will ever be enough to be able to express how grateful I am for you all in this community. It sounded like some glass broke. I'm gonna have to go investigate that. So on that note, thank you all so much for being here and for watching. I can't wait to share more of this moving journey with you and share kind of my finances around that. I appreciate you all more than you will ever know, and I will see you all next time.